Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, I've got a relatively quick follow-up on something we talked about yesterday, and that was the MIG Flash and Nintendo Switch 2, and the reports of the MIG Flash getting the Nintendo Switch 2 banned or bricked. So in yesterday's video, it seemed the choice of verbiage was a very hot topic in the comments. And since then, I did listen to the comments, I did read a lot of them, and I changed the thumbnail from bricked to banned, and I also changed the title of that video from bricked to banned. Now, honestly, this is one of the many reasons why I encourage commenting. I like to hear different viewpoints on the matter. I like to hear people's opinion. If I'm wrong about something, I like to hear it. If I'm right about something, obviously like to hear it. But at the same time, I have no issues admitting if I'm wrong about something. And this one, I will admit I am partially wrong, just based on the general understanding of bricking. However, and I would say I wouldn't say it's a big however, but it is a however. I'm still kind of leaning towards bricked. So in the video I said bricked, people said banned. Some people agreed with me for saying bricked, but a lot of people said no, it's banned. And I think we should be able to meet in the middle on this one. And if you still don't agree, let me know in the comments below. So hear me out. If Nintendo blocks your system from accessing NSO permanently, regardless of who owns the system, if you were to sell it, that person who buys it is still blocked out of NSO on that system, I would say that is a partial brick. I mean, you miss out on a whole lot by not accessing NSO. Yeah, you can play games provided they're all included on that game card, but for digital games, for possibly game key cards, for game updates and DLC and patches and all of that stuff, you miss out on a whole lot. System updates that introduce new functionality as opposed to just stability improvements. I mean, you miss out on a whole lot. And as I'm talking here, the one fluff has just entered the room. So I would say by not being able to access NSO on a console that is pushing towards the digital side of things and online connectivity, that is a partial brick. I mean, someone else buys the console from you, they're locked out of a whole lot of stuff that they'd probably like to be able to do. And if you're being honest and selling it to them and letting them know it's banned from using NSO, well, the price of that Switch 2 has just significantly dropped. If you're dishonest, well, you could probably sell it for full price, and then whoever buys it is in for a very nasty surprise. But overall, I would say if you don't have full functionality of that Switch 2, it's kind of partially bricked. I mean, we're splitting hairs here, but let me know your thoughts. And speaking about thoughts and knowing stuff, next up we're talking about EmuReady, where their tagline is "Know before you load." That was a pretty awful segue, but here we are. Anyways, EmuReady we've talked about in previous videos. This is a compatibility tracker for a bunch of different games for a bunch of different emulators. It is open source, it's community driven, and they're trying to make this a very big thing, and it just officially launched. So if we take a look at the website, there's currently 338 compatibility reports and growing, 501 supported games, 37 emulators, and 413 devices. Now, I would say this website is continually growing, and you can submit your own stuff over on GitHub. It is open source, but I think it will be of value for a lot of people, especially if you're looking for specific devices with specific games. I mean, with the sheer amount of new handhelds coming out on almost a daily basis, this may influence whether or not you pick one up depending on what games run well with it and what don't. If you're interested in this and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. And let me know your thoughts about EmuReady. And speaking about handheld devices, next up we're talking about Taki Udon, who continues to create in the space. And this to me is very interesting. Check out this tweet. When I made the Super 5 roadmap last year, I outlined a plan for a Super Switch Lite. It would have a 6-inch 1440p screen, 6,000 mAh battery, Hall joysticks, and improved audio, all as a PCB swap. After all the Super 5 products are in mass production, I plan to make a Super Switch Lite prototype. Let me know your thoughts about that one. I think that would be pretty cool if you had a Switch Lite and just could swap the board right into the Super Switch Lite and enhance a whole lot about it. I think that's very innovative, very creative, and I'm hoping it's successful. And continuing to talk about handhelds, next up, check this out from TrimUI. The TrimUI Brick Hammer handheld game console is now up for pre-order, and it's $95 US. That's just the base. If you want to slap a micro SD card, it cranks up the price a little bit. I don't know what's going on there with my screen. Anyways, I'll scroll up just to, oh geez. So anyways, there's 3 colors available. Gunmetal gray. There's also, I'm going to have to refresh this page. Hopefully we're fixed now. There's gunmetal gray, there's rose gold, and there is fluorescent green. Now taking a look, 256 gig micro SD card with the device will set you back $125. 128 gigs is $115. And 64 gigs is $105. Every time I'm clicking on something, I'm worried this is going to get all jumbled up again. Anyways, the base price of the console with no micro SD card is $95. And if you've seen, for example, a review from Russ from Retro Game Core, he really, really likes the TrimUI brick. And on a side note here, and I think this is worth mentioning, this is not a promotion for TrimUI, and TrimUI is not paying me to say this. But there is a discount code if you are interested in purchasing one. It is TrimUI 15 off. If you apply that, you get 15% off. So the base goes down to $80.74 USD. Moving on, and we're talking about LibreOffice. And for those who may be unaware, LibreOffice stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, and it's a free and open source replacement, or alternative rather, for Microsoft Office. So PowerPoint and Word and Excel and all of that stuff can be done in LibreOffice. Is it as good? I'll leave that up to you. I'm a huge fan of LibreOffice. I use it on a regular basis, and I find it absolutely fantastic. It's great on Linux. You can use it on Windows. So this is right up on their blog. The end of Windows 10 is approaching, so it's time to consider Linux and LibreOffice. If you are on a Windows 10 machine and you're debating whether or not to update to Windows 11 or purchase a new machine to make it work with Windows 11, I'd recommend giving this article a read to see if it interests you to possibly check out something like LibreOffice and Linux. They even provide helpful links to the distro chooser to help choose a Linux distribution and even more. And if you are interested in checking out Linux, my top 3 recommendations at this point in time, I'll probably do a video on it pretty soon. But to spoil that video, I guess, whatever. Bazite is number 1 if you're interested in gaming and Linux in a relatively safe, hassle-free environment. Then there's Linux Mint, which is just kind of the steady Linux distribution. It's boring, but it works fantastically well. Pop! OS is another great one to try out for some innovations and some fun. And then there's a handful more that I could get into and spend a lot of time talking about, but this is the news, not a Linux tutorial video, so I'm going to shift over to the next segment. So for the next segment, we're talking about Nintendo, and it seems as if Nintendo yesterday had a pretty big direct, but just for one game, and that's Donkey Kong Bananza. The direct was over 17 minutes long, showcasing a whole lot of information about this game, as well as some upcoming accessories or amiibo. And yeah, Pauline is in the game. Based on what I'm seeing here, I think that Pauline is going to have a much bigger place in Donkey Kong lore moving forward. And if you've got a player 2, the player 2 can play as Pauline. Additionally, and not surprising at all, they're coming out with a brand new amiibo here with Donkey Kong and Pauline. And this gets you some in-game stuff and some in-game help if you need help to beat the game. I am curious to hear your thoughts about Donkey Kong Bananza though, so let me know in the comments below. I mean, I'm getting DK64 vibes, I'm getting Banjo-Kazooie vibes, and Super Mario 64 vibes kind of all bundled into one, and then some. I think this will be a pretty good game overall, but maybe I'm in the minority or maybe I'm the majority. Let me know your thoughts on it. And speaking about games, next up we're talking about Beat Saber. And if you're a big fan of Beat Saber on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, you're not going to like this news. Beat Saber is no longer going to be getting new content for PlayStation 4 and 5. The game still will be able to be purchased, and DLC up to this point will be able to be purchased as well, but it's not getting anything new. Additionally here, and I would say this is a kick in the pants if you're on PS4 or PS5, starting on January 21st, 2026, multiplayer will no longer be available in Beat Saber on PS4 and PS5. Now, based on everything I've been able to find out so far, I think this may be a PlayStation-specific thing. I haven't seen any announcements for any other platforms. For example, on Steam here, Beat Saber still has an overwhelmingly positive review score, with recent reviews being very positive, and there is no announcement about discontinuing support of any kind. However, I did find some information buried in an FAQ on their website. I wouldn't say this is an announcement, but at the same time, the question is end of support for PS4, PS5 impacting Steam platform too? And the answer here, there are no changes to Steam support. Music releases will continue to be shared on Steam. I'm wondering here in the background, what's going on with PS4 and PS5 and why is it no longer supported? Is it VR problems? Is it Sony licensing problems? Who knows? And continuing to talk about games, next up we're talking about GOG. Now we talked about GOG yesterday with their preservation program and Devil May Cry. And it seems that GOG has just kicked off their summer sale with a lot of great discounts. The best part about GOG, at least in my opinion here, is that everything is DRM free. And as we move towards an all digital future, as much as you want to resist it, GOG, I would say, is a huge shining light in that entire space. And speaking about heads ups, next up we're talking about NFC. And I would say I'm going to give you a heads up here, at least from my opinion, that's a little bit different than the announcement. It's a result of the announcement. So the announcement here is NFC is getting a range boost, and it's going from 0.5 centimeters to 2 centimeters of distance, a 4 times increase. And I would say here the big heads up is a security risk. Now it's worth noting the security risk may be pretty small. I mean, it's only a 2 centimeter distance, but at the same time here, it may be worthwhile to get a physical NFC wallet if you already don't have one, provided you're getting new cards in it. The new NFC standard here, I would say overall is a very good thing. It makes things a lot easier, makes things a lot less painful in terms of getting something to read and tapping. For example, if you've got a ring or a watch or something like that. But at the same time here, it's just a matter to make sure you're exercising caution when having NFC devices. And on an additional side note here, I think there's already a number of devices out there that can work at over 0.5 centimeters for NFC. So I'm assuming that a number of devices won't be affected by this new baseline. I think the baseline is 2 centimeters to be classified as NFC compliant as opposed to 0.5 centimeters. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so. Anyways, here, this is just more of a heads up overall and possibly a nothing burger if you don't really see an issue here. And speaking about no issues, next up we're, I think, talking about the exact opposite here. We're talking about Marathon. This announcement was on June 17th, and it turns out that Marathon no longer has a release date. The previous release date was September 23rd, and the announcement here says they're not releasing it on September 23rd. They didn't provide an additional date here. Now, based on everything I'm seeing here, I don't want to say this is the beginning of the end for Marathon. I don't want to say this is the middle of the end of Marathon. I don't want to say this is a sunk cost fallacy where they're going to keep pumping money into this to try to make a good product and release it at some point in time. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes of Marathon. There's been a whole bunch of rumors out there about morale, about a whole bunch of changes. And I'm curious to see if Marathon ever sees the light of day. So based on this messaging, we're going to have to wait until the fall to find out what the progress is on Marathon and what things are looking like. I'm assuming there's probably going to be a bunch of rumors that surface before then, but let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below and the future of Marathon. And speaking about games with a questionable future, and this one is far less questionable than Marathon. Next up, we're talking about Alzara. Alzara Radiant Echoes. I might have mispronounced that name. Anyways, this was a game on Kickstarter that raised around $300,000 and has since been canceled. So there's a new update over on their Kickstarter where they announced that the studio is shutting down. So even though they raised around $300,000, they were unable to find a partner to help bring this game to life. They had a demo, they had a team of experienced developers, but they couldn't find a partner in this gaming climate to help bring this game to life and release it. From my understanding, they had about half of the funding they needed overall, and they couldn't secure any more. This is very unfortunate, and it's one of the things about Kickstarter that I dislike the most. Sometimes, even though if a Kickstarter looks like it's going to be successful, it could fail. Next up, we're talking about the opposite of failing and talking about succeeding and talking about a couple of new games that are going to be hitting mobile. One of them here is Enter the Gungeon, and the second one is Exit the Gungeon. And I think a lot of people are going to be excited about this one, especially if you like the games. Now, if you're unsure as to whether or not you like this style of game, if I'm not mistaken here, both of these games are free to try, so you can try them absolutely free before committing to buy them. I believe Enter the Gungeon is priced at about $9 overall, $9 US. Where Exit the Gungeon I think is priced at $5. And speaking about whether or not you're a fan of games, next up or last up here, we're talking about Bully on PC. If you're a fan of Bully SE on PC and you're a fan of modding, you might be a fan of this here. A long lost mod has been found, and it is a PS2 overhaul of the game. It replaces a whole bunch of stuff with PS2 textures, including the NPCs. The original site that hosted the mod was taken down and nobody has seen the mod for a number of years, and a lot of people, I guess, have been asking about it. And then someone ended up finding it on a USB hard drive. If you are curious about this one, it's up on Nexus Mods and 100% free. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Actually, the legendary one fluff made an appearance. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.